Today we're touring Disney's Hollywood Studios. This is episode 15 of the Go Informed podcast. Welcome to episode 15 of the Go Informed podcast. Today we are taking a tour of Hollywood Studios theme park at Disney World, and I'm so glad that you could join me today. My name is Maven. I'm your hostess here on the show, and today is day 7 of your 10 days to a better Disney World vacation. So you are 1 week closer to your trip to Disney World. Congratulations. I hope you guys are excited. I hope the 6 episodes before this one and the next 3 that you're going to hear, I hope that all of them are really helping you to get a better understanding of what to expect on your trip and also to help you get excited to go to Disney World. So today we're going to take a virtual tour of Disney's Hollywood Studios, and I'm going to take you around the park and give you some of the things that I think are really worth noting and knowing about Disney's Hollywood Studios. We're also going to talk a little bit about some of the things that are coming to this park. A lot of exciting stuff is just about to open up at Hollywood Studios, so I'm going to touch on that for you too. Anything that I mention here on this episode where there's a resource that I have or anything that I reference, I will make note of it in the show notes, and you can get those over at goinformed.net/15. So you don't have to take notes today. You can just imagine yourself on the trip walking around the park. If you want to follow along with a map, I will put a link to where you can find a map in the show notes. You can also follow along in the My Disney Experience app if you've loaded that. That's the official Disney World app. And if you have that loaded on your phone, you can actually see some interactive park maps right there on your phone. So if that is handy and you're not driving the car right now, you can pull that up and use that to follow along too. So Disney's Hollywood Studios theme park was the third of the 4 major theme parks at Disney World to open. It opened in 1989 and its theming is movies and TV. Disney's Hollywood Studios, when it opened, was quite a bit different from the other theme parks at Disney World. It was actually a working movie and TV studio, and you could go on tours of the back lot and see some of this happening in action. Nowadays, that's all closed down, and it's really much more of a traditional theme park with all kinds of your usual attractions, rides, shows, and things like that. But originally, when the park opened, it was Disney's response to Universal, who was just about to open their Universal Studios Florida park. So if you listen to any of episodes 1 through 7 of this podcast, then you're probably familiar with what's over there at Universal. By the way, if you haven't listened to those episodes yet and Universal is on your itinerary for Orlando, I highly recommend that after you finish listening to the Disney episodes here, that you go back and listen to episodes 1 through 7 of the podcast, because that is 7 days to a better Universal Orlando vacation. And just like this series here, it's all the basic stuff that you are going to want to know before you get too far into your trip planning for Universal. So that was a long aside. Let's get back to Disney here. So Disney's Hollywood Studios was designed to kind of compete with the Universal Park. And so they themed this park all about movies and TV. And it continues to have that theme today. In fact, it's a lot more about Disney movies and IP that Disney owns. So Pixar and Star Wars are a couple of the really big ones you're going to see here, in addition to a lot of other kind of pop culture references, entertainment references that are in the park. The Hollywood Studios theme park is located really near to Epcot in the big Disney World property. There are a number of ways that you can get to the park. You can drive, so you can get there by car or Uber or cab or anything like that. You can take a Disney bus from one of the Disney resorts or from one of the other parks, or you can take a boat to get to Hollywood Studios. The boat runs along a canal that goes all the way to Epcot, and it stops at the boardwalk area hotels that are sort of located between Epcot and Hollywood Studios. And actually, there's another way you can get here too, which is on foot. There is a walking path that goes alongside the canal, and you can walk actually all the way from Epcot to Hollywood Studios. It'd be a pretty long walk on a theme park day when you're already doing a lot of walking. But if you're staying in one of those hotels, then it's probably maybe like 15-minute walk. It's not too bad. So you can just go on foot if you want to, depending on where you're staying, to get to Hollywood Studios. So there's a lot of cool stuff to see at Hollywood Studios, even right now, while there's a lot of things under construction also. Before we step into the park, I just want to take a minute here and talk about some of the stuff that is coming. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it because I'm going to assume that you guys are ready to go and see what's there right now. But some of you may be time traveling back in time and listening to this from the future, in which case you are super lucky because there are a few things opening up in the next, definitely within the next 2 years. So the first thing that's coming is Toy Story Land. Toy Story Land is based on, obviously, the Pixar Toy Story movies. And in Toy Story Land, you have shrunk to the size of a toy and everything else is really big. What they're telling us about Toy Story Land, it sounds like there's going to be a lot of things for younger kids, but I think the theming here is going to be really immersive and I think it's going to be really fun for all ages, and especially if you have any kind of a connection, an emotional connection to the Toy Story characters and that whole universe that those movies created. The Toy Story Land will probably be a really fun thing to see. So I'll point out when we're on our walking tour, I'll point out where that's going to be located so you'll know. It is supposed to open up in summer of 2018. Disney hasn't given any exact dates yet, and they probably won't until it gets really close to opening time. So summer 2018 might mean May, or it might mean August, or somewhere in between. So if you're traveling during this summer, hopefully you'll get lucky and this will be open for you to see. Okay, the other really big thing that's coming to Disney's Hollywood Studios is a Star Wars land. So this is called Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. This isn't going to open until sometime in 2019, which means it could be, this is really vague. I mean, it could be the beginning of 2019, but I doubt it. It could be the very end of 2019. It's a huge project. It's already well underway right now, and it is going to be amazing. It's going to be like you've traveled to another planet in the Star Wars, universe. And you get to ride in the Millennium Falcon. There's going to be like a cantina, like in the Star Wars movie. Lots of characters that will make you feel like you have stepped off the earth. I think it's going to be incredible. Tomorrow when we talk about Animal Kingdom, and we'll talk a little bit about the new Pandora world of Avatar, I'll give you an idea of just how immersive these new lands are that Disney has created. And really, if it's anything like what they've done with Pandora, this Star Wars land is going to be incredible. So if you're a Star Wars fan, you're going to be really excited to see it, I'm sure, but you're going to have to be patient. It's not opening for a while, and those schedules can slip quite a bit because it's really complex what they're doing here. But eventually, we're all going to get to go to Star Wars Land and experience that firsthand. If you're a Star Wars fan, though, Hollywood Studios is your park even now. There's tons of Star Wars stuff here. We're going to talk about pretty much all of it on our tour today. So keep listening. I think you'll be satisfied even if you don't get to go to an entire land that's Star Wars. Okay, so let's go ahead and go into the park now. So as you arrive at the park, you're going to approach an entrance that's like a big metal marquee, sort of. And the first street that you come to, the main street of this park, is called Hollywood Boulevard. And it is modeled after kind of the golden age of Hollywood. So the architecture looks like LA, Hollywood from around the 1920s, 1930s, in that era. Lots of pastel colors. There's tall palm trees lining the boulevard. And at the end of the boulevard is a replica of the Grauman's Chinese Theater from Hollywood. So that famous theater where they have had all the movie premieres over the years. So we're going to go ahead and walk up Hollywood Boulevard. I'll tell you a couple things to note on this street. Much like at Magic Kingdom, this is like the main street here. So this is food and shopping kind of stuff on the street. This street I don't think it's quite as long as Main Street in Magic Kingdom. So there's not quite as much to see here, but the quality is good. So on the left, as we walk up the street, there is a shop that has all kinds of really nice clothing, t-shirts, and accessories for men, women, kids. Great place to go if you're looking for things like t-shirts or hats and stuff like that. On the right-hand side of the street, as we walk along, there's a shop that sells Mickey ears and hats, and they do personalization and stuff. If you're looking for Mickey ears, mouse ears, this is a really good spot. This is where Luna and I both got our cool mouse ears, which you might see making cameos in many of the pictures on my website and on my Instagram. So for whatever reason, it seems like the hat shop here on Hollywood Boulevard sometimes has some unique things that you're not going to find in other parks. Kind of next to the hat shop, towards the end of the street, that's your Starbucks. So I know, I feel like I'm telling you guys where the Starbucks is in every park, but I know you want to know. So it's a really big one. They're always busy, but they're usually pretty fast. That's kind of up on the corner at the end of Hollywood Boulevard. Also, something else that's kind of unique about this park is that most all of the streets that you're going to walk on here in Hollywood Studios have names. So unlike Main Street in Magic Kingdom, which I guess is technically called Main Street, the other streets in Magic Kingdom are just sort of like the path that goes to Adventureland or Tomorrowland. They don't really have names, but here in Hollywood Studios, it's supposed to be like you're in Hollywood. So the streets actually have names to them, and you'll see it on the map if you look at the park map. That makes it a little easier for me to explain where we're going today, because I can tell you what street we're on. And this park, honestly, I think is a little difficult to navigate because it doesn't exactly have a hub and spoke. It's sort of squashed and sort of sprawling. So having some names for some of these parts of the park, some street names, can be useful when you're trying to figure out how to get from one attraction to another one that's across the park. So today on our tour, we will do some backtracking because of the nature of how this park is laid out, but I have a plan. So what we're going to do first is we're going to actually walk towards the Chinese Theater. The Chinese Theater is basically, that's the castle in this park. So a lot of activity happens near here. There's a stage with shows that go on all day long. The theater itself, until recently, housed a ride called the Great Movie Ride, which has now been closed and is going to be replaced by a new ride that will star Minnie and Mickey Mouse. So I think it's going to be really cute. And if you think about it, there actually aren't really any rides that star Mickey Mouse or Minnie Mouse in any of the parks. So this is a long overdue addition. And eventually that will open inside the Chinese Theater. We don't even have a date yet for that. So if you're traveling anytime in 2018, that's definitely not going to be open yet. But right now you can still check out the theater. It's really beautifully built. Great place to get pictures. Also, when they do the fireworks at night here in Hollywood Studios, they usually incorporate some projection that goes onto the theater, which I don't even know how they do it. It's like projection they do on the castle in Magic Kingdom. It is like the biggest movie screen you've ever seen, and it's really, really neat. So the theater is basically a big landmark in Hollywood Studios, and you can use it as that to find your way around. So what we're going to do today is we are going to head towards one of the most popular attractions today in Hollywood Studios. We're going to head there first. This is where a lot of people will go first when they come into the park, especially if you get to the park right at rope drop when the gates open. This ride is one that really pays to get to it early. So that is the Toy Story Midway Mania ride. And to get to it, we're going to walk towards the theater, but not all the way up to it. As you approach the theater, we're really where we're going to go is behind it. So you have to turn a little bit. Well, you have to turn to the right and then to the left. So you kind of make a little loop. The street that we're heading for, if you're looking on your map, is called Pixar Place. So down here in Pixar Place, there are a few things besides the Toy Story ride right now. You can meet some of the Toy Story characters down here. Also, sometimes you'll see those green army men guys from Toy Story just walking around in Pixar Place, which is really fun. As we're heading down this street, the main attraction is Toy Story Midway Mania. Now, before we step into the ride, I just want to point out that if you walk all the way to the end of Pixar Place, which is really just the end of the building that the Toy Story ride is in, that is going to be the entrance to the Toy Story Land. So if you are visiting anytime this winter of 2018 here or into the spring, you should be able to see a lot of Toy Story Land over the fence as it's being built back here. And if you get to go this summer, then hopefully this road will just continue through and you'll end up in Toy Story Land. But since we can't go there yet, you can peek through the fence if you want. That's what we did last time we were there. But I just want to stop and talk for a second about the Toy Story Midway Mania ride. This is a really fun ride for everyone. Basically, it's a dark ride. I mean, you get in a vehicle and you're riding through in the dark, but what it is like kind of like a shooting arcade. It's a shooting gallery led by the Toy Story characters. So it's a video screen, but the images are great. You wear 3D glasses and you get to shoot like ping pong balls and knock down plates or pop balloons with darts, and it's all virtually done, but it is super, super fun. They've designed the ride vehicle so that even little kids can interact and take part in the competition that you're doing. There's a lot of humor, just like in the movies. And the music, you get the Toy Story music. It's a very, very fun ride. Because everyone can ride this ride, super popular, because it's not one of these rides where it's only going to appeal to little kids kids or big kids or whatever. This one, you really want to think about getting a Fast Pass Plus reservation for, or get there early and get on the ride before the lines get too long. I think once Toy Story Land opens up, the pressure on this ride will ease and it'll probably be easier to get onto it. But until then, well, even after that for a while, the whole park will be busy because of the new land. So I just have to say that there aren't very many rides anywhere that I want to wait in line more than half an hour to ride, but this is one I would wait for. So if that gives you an idea of where to put it on your priority list, personally, I think it's a really awesome ride. So since this is kind of the only attraction down here, we're going to go ahead and backtrack. So we're going to turn around on Pixar Place and head back towards where we turned and went around the theater. But instead of going back all the way back to the theater, we're going to keep walking past it. And as you walk past the back side of the theater, you'll see in front of you, there's a courtyard here. They call it Animation Courtyard. And there's several buildings and there's a big archway that you can walk through. We're going to head down into the Animation Courtyard. So down here in this area, there are kind of three big buildings that are surrounding you. And all of them have some really special stuff depending on what you're into. As we go into the courtyard, on your left is a show building for the Voyage of the Little Mermaid show. This is kind of like a mini Broadway type show. And so you can go in and see that show. It runs all day long. I think you can even get a fast pass for it if you want to reserve a time. On the other side, to your right, is the Disney Junior Live on Stage show. So if you have Disney Junior fans in your crowd, they're going to want to see this because they get to see the characters in person and they do a show, and it's really oriented towards kind of that preschool demographic. So don't miss that if you have little kids. And then straight ahead of you is something I think is super cool, and that is called Star Wars Launch Bay. So the Star Wars Launch Bay is, I kind of think of it almost like a little Star Wars museum. There's a lot of different things inside here. If you're a big fan, you could probably spend a lot of time inside the launch bay. In the launch bay, they have a movie theater where they usually show sometimes they'll show like trailers for the next Star Wars movie or previews or just something to do with Star Wars. And they also have a really cool gift shop here with like you can buy your own BB-8 or a lightsaber or all kinds of cool stuff. They have costumes on display, original costumes from the movies. And you can meet the characters in here too. So you can meet characters like Chewbacca, Kylo Ren, BB-8, the Stormtroopers. You'll see Stormtroopers coming and going through the launch bay. There's just a whole lot of activity happening here. A lot of it, you can just walk in and just look at it. Like I said, it's kind of like a museum in that they have a lot of memorabilia in here that you can just walk around and take a look at it. If you want to meet the characters, most days the waits aren't very long. I mean, like 20 minutes or so, and it doesn't seem super long. And I don't know, I think one of the coolest characters I've ever met was Chewbacca. It was really, I don't know why, I'm not even a huge Star Wars fan, but he was so cool. And he was so huggable too. So yeah, if you are a Star Wars fan, you should definitely make time to go to Launch Bay. Launch Bay, like I said, it's not the kind of place necessarily where you're going to deal with lines. So it might be one that you want to save until mid-afternoon or something when maybe it's getting hot or it's just getting crowded in the parks. It could still be crowded in there, but you don't feel like you have to stand in a line to see things or do things, which makes that kind of a nice break from some of the other waiting in line. And if it's pouring rain, this is a very popular spot to hide. So keep it in mind to toss into your plans at some point during the day when you want to be inside and kind of out of the crowd. So now that we're done with Launch Bay, we're going to turn around and head out of the animation courtyard. And once we get out from under the archway, we're going to turn left and head towards Sunset Boulevard. So here on our left is a iconic Hollywood restaurant, which is the Brown Derby. The Brown Derby is the kind of restaurant where you would go back in the day and there would be movie stars eating in there. It's a very fancy restaurant, very classic in terms of the menu and the service. And here at Disney World, they've done a great job of giving you that whole sense of being in with the Hollywood royalty. The Brown Derby is a white tablecloth, steak, and red wine kind of restaurant. If you are looking for a special place to have a meal while you're in the park or just at Disney World in general, this is a really fun place to go. It is a place that you can take your kids out for a really nice meal, but don't be so worried to take your kids here because they know there's lots of kids here. And if you want a nice glass of wine, this is a good spot. Incidentally, the Brown Derby also has a lounge area, which is outside. So if it's 100 degrees and 100% humidity, that might not be appealing. But otherwise, you can actually get a meal outside at the lounge without a reservation. You can also just go there and get drinks and appetizers and kind of get that whole Brown Derby feel. So I think the lounge is open starting around noon every day. And so you can even have a late lunch here or stop in the afternoon or evening for snacks or dinner. And if you want to eat at the Brown Derby, you're going to want to get a reservation at least the day of. Look and see if there's any reservations available. But if you're planning ahead, this is one that is definitely worth getting a reservation for as your big meal for that day. So we're going to go ahead and go around the Brown Derby. We're taking a left and we're going down Sunset Boulevard. So when you turn down Sunset Boulevard, you may see far off in the distance a spooky looking building. And that is the Hollywood Tower Hotel, which is the home of the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror ride. Tower of Terror actually isn't the only thrill ride that's down this street. This is kind of a thrilling part of any of the Disney World theme parks, but definitely here at Hollywood Studios, this is going to be where you go if you want to get on the thrill rides. So I think what we'll do, because just like the other streets, we're going to backtrack. Let's go ride the thrill rides first, and then we'll talk about what else is on this street. If we walk all the way to the end of the street and then we take a slight right, we will end up in the queue for the Tower of Terror ride. Tower of Terror is a thrilling ride. It takes you up many stories in an elevator and it drops you. And it's obviously more than that. The theming's amazing. It's a Twilight Zone theme. It's spooky, and all the details inside the building and outside actually are really, really meticulously done. So if you like exciting rides, or if you like this kind of spooky haunted house kind of feel, then this ride's for you. I have to admit, this is the scariest ride at Disney World for me. A lot of people think I'm really weird because they think there's way more scary rides. But for me, the drop and not knowing when it's going to drop is so scary. But you know what? I am excited to say that I have ridden it several times. I've overcome that fear. And I figure that if I can ride the Tower of Terror and not freak out too much, then I can do almost anything, which is exactly why you're listening to me right now. It definitely gives me courage to try new things when I get on rides like that, and I know I can do it even though it was scary. So as long as you're not someone who's got a reason why you can't try this ride, screw up your courage and do it, or make a bet with someone to dare you to do it and try it, because you might love it. A lot of people love this ride. They like the drop and they love the theming of it and everything. So that one is available to you if you want to try something like that. And also at the end of Sunset Boulevard is another really thrilling ride. This ride is officially called the Rock and Roller Coaster starring Aerosmith. I think most people just call it the Rock and Roller Coaster, but Aerosmith definitely has a huge role in this ride. The Rock and Roller Coaster, according to Wikipedia, launches you from 0 to 57 miles per hour in 2.8 seconds. So when you get on this ride, you are at a complete standstill, and then you are not. It is a crazy experience getting launched in this roller coaster. Wikipedia actually says that you pull more G's than an astronaut on a space shuttle launch. So if that gives you an idea of what you're going to be doing to your body. Did I mention the ride is in the dark, and there's some loop-de-loops and inversions, and all the time that you are riding the roller coaster, you are listening to Aerosmith. So there's just all these layers of excitement that you get with the Rock and Roller Coaster. And to me, it's one of the most fun roller coasters I've ever been on, but I know that there's a lot of people who aren't quite sure about roller coasters. And if you're one of those people, this is probably not your ride because it's pretty extreme in a lot of ways. And so be aware that the Rock and Roller Coaster is definitely for people who like roller coasters. So the Rock and Roller Coaster is located at, if we're standing at the end of Sunset Boulevard, looking at the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror up ahead on our right on the hill, the Rock and Roller Coaster entrance will be directly to your left. So it's kind of right at the end of the street opposite where the Tower of Terror is. And so if you like thrill rides, it's great because they're both right next to each other. So that's convenient. Something else to know about the Rock and Roller Coaster. Obviously, it's really popular because it is such a unique roller coaster. This is one that you may want to think about having a fast pass for or heading onto it first thing in the morning. Maybe not on an empty stomach. You might want to prepare yourself if you're going to do that first thing, but that will save you time in line. This roller coaster, there's only a few rides at Disney World that have a singles line, and this is one of them. And usually the singles line is a really great way to get on a ride fairly quickly. You don't necessarily get to ride next to your friend on the ride, but you can stand in line together. And on most rides, the singles line goes pretty fast. But for whatever reason, on the Rock and Roller Coaster, the singles line is super, super slow, almost always. So I really want to caution you against trying to use the singles line as a way to beat the crowd, because you're going to be disappointed and frustrated if you use the singles line on the Rock and Roller Coaster. So a lot of times it's actually faster to wait in the standby line for whatever that wait time is rather than riding on the single line. So that's just a heads up for you guys who are trying to sort of hack your way to the front of the ride. This one, sorry, but singles line, I just don't think it's worth it. So besides the two big thrill rides down here on Sunset Boulevard, there's a couple of shows that you can also check out. There is a Beauty and the Beast live show here, which is, again, it's kind of one of those mini Broadway show kind of things. So if you like that sort of thing, you can go see that down here. It's just kind of before you come to where the entrance to walk up to the Tower of Terror is. Also down here at this end of the street is the entrance to Fantasmic, which is a show that usually happens every night, at least once a night. And it's a fireworks show. It's a nighttime show that you can go and see in this part of the park. So let's go ahead. We're turning around now. We're going to head back up the street, back towards the Brown Derby. And as we're walking along Sunset Boulevard, there are some cool things to check out here. First of all, there's a lot of good quick service food options. As we're walking back towards the Grauman's Chinese Theater, walking that direction, on your right hand side there are a bunch of food, kind of like kiosks, I guess you could say, and there's all kinds of stuff you can get here. You can get pizza, you can get hamburgers. It's like kind of quick service type stuff. There's a fruit stand, there's ice cream. So if you're looking for a quick meal or just a snack, right here along Sunset Boulevard is a good place to head because they kind of have something for everyone here. And then there's just sort of there's a lot of seating. So if one person in your group wants a hamburger and one wants pizza or whatever, you can go and find that there and have a seat and all sit together. Also along Sunset Boulevard, there's some really cool shopping. So there's several different shops, both on your right and your left as we're walking back towards the center of the park, that have different movie themed merchandise. So you can, there's a collectible shop that's got all kinds of different collectible dolls and Tsum Tsums and stuff like that in there. You can get, movie themed t-shirts and lots of Mickey and Minnie kind of Hollywood style stuff. So these shops are a great place to get inside for a little while, get out of the crowd, get into some air conditioning and do a little bit of shopping. So now we're going to, as we come to the end of this street, you'll see Hollywood Boulevard and the entrance to the park. As if you keep on walking, that's all going to be off to your left. And if you keep walking straight ahead, there's a lake, a small lake here, and it's called Echo Lake. And we're going to go over towards that. So we'll walk across the main courtyard here through the middle part of the park, and we're going to go down. Now, this street doesn't seem to have a name, according to my map, but it's next to Echo Lake. So let's see, what are you going to see? Well, the first thing you're going to see is a sign for the Frozen Sing-Along Celebration. So that takes place in one of the first buildings that you'll walk by, and this is obviously Frozen-themed live show, and you get to sing along. So if you're a Frozen fan or you like to sing or you like live shows, this might be something you want to check out. As we keep walking down this street, there's some other really interesting things. On your left is a stunt show. It's the Indiana Jones stunt show. This is the kind of thing that these old Hollywood studio tours used to have lots of, and now you don't see them very much anymore. But here at Hollywood Studios, they still have a stunt show, and it's really cool to see because they demonstrate how they do a lot of the stunts in this. This one is all Indiana Jones themed and pretty much themed after the Raiders of the Lost Ark. So they actually replicate some of the stunts that they did in that movie, and including the big boulder that chases Indy down the cave or whatever it was. So they tell you how they did it. They show you how, and it's a really interesting and entertaining. So if you have time for that, it's probably like a 20 to 30 minute long show, but it's really, really fun and something you're not going to really see anywhere else. Across from Indiana Jones and just a little farther down the street, this is going to be another big Star Wars kind of area. One of the big attractions at Hollywood Studios for kids is called the Jedi Training Academy. This is for kids ages 4 to 12, and they get to go and get Jedi training, which is pretty exciting for a lot of kids. It's something that's very popular. You have to sign up for it first thing in the morning, and it fills up fast. And the kids who participate in it, they do training, and then they're kind of part of a show. So families can watch them do their training, do their demonstration, and all of that. And that all takes place down here at this end of the park. Now, I don't have a Jedi in training in my house, so I don't have a lot of tips to give you about this one, but I know that it's something that a lot of people want to do and want to find out about. So I will find a post. I'll get you guys a link to something that has information to help you plan to do Jedi training if that's something you want to do. I'll make sure and put it in the show notes, which you can get over at goinform.net/15. So if you're interested in that, I'll make sure you have some information that you can refer to. And next to where they do the Jedi training demonstrations is a ride called Star Tours: The Adventures Continue. This is a simulator ride where it seems like you are flying through space with C-3PO in the Star Wars movies. This is very immersive. So if you are not someone who likes motion simulators, this ride may not be for you. I know people who just cannot tolerate it. But if you've never had a problem with motion simulator, then you are probably good to go. It is really cool. I mean, it really does seem like you are flying through space on this adventure. It's exciting and funny. And it's like you walked into, are riding in the Star Wars movies. So definitely worth checking out. And behind where the Star Tours ride is, as far as I can tell, that is where the entrance to the new Star Wars Galaxy's Edge land is going to be. In the future, you'll be able to continue your Star Wars journey all the way into this whole entire realm of Star Wars, which will be down in this end of the park. And when you're visiting, even before that opens, just like with the Toy Story Land construction, there is going to be some tall stuff going into this Star Wars land, and you'll probably be able to see a lot of it over the top of the fence. So if you want a little sneak peek, kind of peek around behind where the Star Tours is, and you might be able to see some of the new land getting built. Okay, so we've gotten to Star Tours, and we're kind of going to do a little loop around here now. So let's put our back to the Star Tours ride for a second. If you look straight ahead, it's kind of the side of a building. If you go to the left and then around the corner of that building, now you're going to be on a road called Commissary Lane. Just before you hit that, there is a theater, which is the Muppet Vision Theater. And this has an attraction called Muppet Vision 3D. And there's hardly ever a line for this, and it is hysterical. So go see the Muppet Vision 3D movie in the theater here. It's, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. It's air conditioned in here. It's not raining in here, and it's usually not crowded in here. So those are all pluses, especially if you're down at this end of the park towards the end of the day. This is a good one when the rest of the park's really full and you need something to do. The Muppet Vision movie is usually a good choice. It, like I said, it's really funny. Everybody, every age will enjoy it. Even the area where you wait in the queue is funny. There's all kinds of little sight gags and funny things going on. So go and visit the Muppets. And now as we head up Commissary Lane, we're going to pass one of my favorite restaurants in the parks. This is the Sci-Fi Dine-In Theater. The Sci-Fi Dine-In Theater restaurant looks like you are in a drive-in theater at night. You actually sit in a car. That's where your table is. And all the cars face a big movie screen. It's dark in here. And the movies are old, like 1950s B movies, like It Came from Outer Space and stuff like that. It's all the trailers for those old movies that they play on a loop while you're sitting there eating your meal. It is really interesting. I mean, especially for kids, but even many adults have never even been to a drive-in movie. Like I haven't ever been to a real drive-in movie. So it's really cool to go and sit in here and sort of get an idea of what that must have been like back in the day when they were showing movies like this. Don't worry, the movies they're fully appropriate. They don't show anything not appropriate for little kids. They even show some cartoons, and the food in here is fine. It's basically like kind of nicer hamburgers and sandwiches and salads and stuff like that. And they have milkshakes, which are the real thing, where they bring you the milkshake in the tall glass, but also the metal cup with the rest of the milkshake. So easily you could go to the dine-in restaurant and split a hamburger and split a shake and have a great meal. So you get a lot here. This one does fill up, and it can end up waiting for a table quite a while. So this is a good one to get a reservation for. We like to go for lunch. It is dark and cool and quiet in here. It's a really nice break from if you've had already a busy morning of touring, and it gives you a really good kind of way to re-energize for your afternoon. So I highly recommend it for lunch. Plus, it's just kind of cool to go inside and have it be dark, even though it's the middle of the day. I think if we went there for dinner, it wouldn't quite have the same effect. So that's the Sci-Fi Dine-In restaurant down at the end of Commissary Lane. So if we continue up Commissary Lane, we're going to end up right back to the side of the Chinese Theater and back to kind of the center courtyard anyway of the park. So here in this area, this is where you're going to see fireworks, if there's fireworks for the evening. And like I said, lots of different shows that take place here during the day. This is going to end our tour today. I will let you guys decide where you want to go back to. I am going to go and get ready for tomorrow's tour. Tomorrow, we are going to visit Disney's Animal Kingdom theme park, which is super cool. I'm really glad you guys are going to come along and check this one out with me. We're going to talk all about what's new there and all the fun stuff that you can see at Animal Kingdom. So please stay tuned for that one. That's going to be day 8 of our 10 days. And don't forget, if you want to get some information about anything that I talked about in today's episode, you can get the show notes over at goinformed.net/15. Also, I encourage you to head over to my Facebook page and follow me on Facebook, because that's where I'm going to be sharing if there's any news about something like the opening date for Toy Story gets announced or anything like that kind of real-time news sort of information. Typically, the place where I would share that is over on Facebook. So you can find me on Facebook. I just look for Go Informed Net, and I'll put a link in the show notes. You can just click through and get over there to the Facebook page and give it a like, and then you won't miss any of that big news when it comes out. I am looking forward to seeing you guys tomorrow at Animal Kingdom. Thanks again for joining me today at Hollywood Studios, and I hope you have a spine-tingling vacation.